At one point, driving to the office and sitting in the parking lot and not feeling excited about going upstairs into my own office. And then how do you motivate other people to be excited when you're not excited? So that was quite a pivotal point. But I felt in many ways that I had those self-imposed golden handcuffs because the business was going great. So, what am I going to do with it? And that was, kind of that point of stuckness that I'd found myself in.
Welcome to the EO Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. This is the place where we spotlight the real, raw, and remarkable journeys of entrepreneurs within the EO community. Today's guest is Marina Byezhanova, a powerhouse in the world of personal branding and a passionate advocate for amplifying the voices of leaders. She's the co-founder of Brand of a Leader, an agency dedicated to helping entrepreneurs realize and express their greatness through authentic personal brands. She's been a proud member of EO since 2014 and is currently part of EO Canada Bridge and the Global Learning Ambassadors Committee. But what makes her story even more inspiring is her resilience. After losing a business during COVID, Marina realized her passion has shifted and bravely pivoted to building something new. Today, she runs a thriving business that spans 12 countries and is powered by a team of A players. This episode is all about reinvention, purpose, and personal brand. From someone who's living proof that losing one dream can sometimes lead you straight to your true calling. Now let's dive right in.
This episode is sponsored by Outsourcing Angel, your partner for skilled offshore staff in LinkedIn marketing, lead generation, customer support, and more. As a social enterprise, we donate 10% of profits to charity and provide heart-centered VAs who go the extra mile for your success. Visit outsourcingangel.com.
Welcome to the show, Marina. It's so good to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this chat.
I think you might be the first Canadian EOer on this podcast, maybe.
I hope that is the case. That's a milestone. So I hope so. You'll have to let me know after.
Unless it's Cameron Herold, who's no longer an EO member, but he was, and I think he's originally from Canada. But anyhow, thank you for being on the show. And yeah, I want to get started with, learning a little bit about your journey, how you got into branding in the first place.
So I started Brand of a Leader, which is a personal branding agency for founders and CEOs just over 4 years ago now. I had known for a few years that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to start this agency, but I was running a different business at the time. It was successful. We were expanding and growing nationally. And so this was my, kind of dream project. One day, who knows when that day is going to be, but one day I'm going to start this agency. I had the domain purchased, brandofaleader.com, but it was a faraway project. And then things took a different, sometimes life has different plans for us than we have for us. Life took a turn and the journey got accelerated and I launched this dream business.
So tell me more about the branding service. Is this about personal branding? Like, how do you kind of help entrepreneurs build their brand?
Yeah, so we work only with Gen X CEOs and executives, very specific. And we're not working with people who are looking to be famous or, monetize, having 1 million followers. We're really looking with people who want to become thought leaders in their industry. And then as a result of that, we'll support the marketing function of their organization or sometimes support their own transition, pivot, post-exit, things like that. And so we help founders tell their stories, really is the best way of putting that. We help them tell stories, find their voice, tell them at scale, and then increase their visibility. And because most Gen Xers are not so comfortable with visibility and putting themselves out there, there is thankfully big need for an agency such as Brand of a Leader.
Yeah, I know what it's like. When I started my video journey over 14 years ago, I started and stopped many times. But do you know that with the video, I uploaded 2 on YouTube and my husband found me on YouTube? That is the power of video.
No, now I'm going to cut out that part and use it for marketing as well. That's what else can happen.
I know. And even though it brought such a big ROI for me, I really struggled. And I know the importance of having someone to handhold you and take you through the journey. But what made you realize that that is your passion project? You were working in another business before, and what sparked this idea or you realizing that, hey, this is my passion?
Well, so I've always been passionate about the idea of people having their voice. When I was born, it was still the Soviet Union, then became post-Soviet Ukraine, and I had that feeling of censorship, of not having a voice. And then came to Canada as a teenager. I was so accented that nobody understood what I was saying. So I felt for many years that I didn't have a voice in many ways, and to me, it was so precious to have it. And then fast forward when I finally became a speaker and then a global speaker, I worked on my English a lot and finally had a voice, and finally people were listening to me, and I was so just validated. And then I looked around me because I thought all the other founders were doing the same thing, were putting themselves out there and inspiring others at scale and having their ideas heard. And I saw that that was not the case. And as I started speaking to other founders at the time, I was already proud member of EO Entrepreneurs Organization. And as I started speaking with other founders and saying, well, why aren't you putting yourself out there? Time and time again, Lynn, I would hear, but what do I have to say that's of value?
Yeah.
But who wants to hear what I have to say? Who wants to hear from me? And these are all the people I admired and I thought were so much more successful than me and better than me and smarter than me and everything. And they were saying that. And I thought to myself, there must be a way of helping them find their voice in a way that feels authentic, giving them, packaging their stories so that they feel proud about sharing them, helping them refine their messaging. So again, it doesn't feel like it's an exercise in vanity, but so that they feel that their voice is bringing something tangible to the conversation, and then hand holding them so that they don't stop along the way. So I had this idea, I had all those dreams and all those plans, but as I said, I kept postponing until that one day.
Okay, so let us go back to that other business. You mentioned to me outside of this that it was a turning point into why you got into this business in the first place. So let's go back and talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced with the other business.
So I became an entrepreneur, by the way, completely accidentally. As any good immigrant, I wanted to build a corporate career and climb the corporate ladder and, be the pride and joy of the family who would tell family back at home that Marina works at some big corporation. Accidentally, quote unquote, became an entrepreneur and co founded a headhunting business. So we started in the headhunting space. The business grew quite a bit, and we started dabbling in the HR consulting space. We did quite a bit of work in company culture. We launched the first series of company culture conferences in Canada, which was very successful too. And then we began to dabble in employer branding. So that is when I first saw that connection between what I was doing, because when I was building my visibility, I wasn't calling it personal branding. That also sounds a little bit conceited, right? I'm building my brand. I wasn't calling it that, but I saw similarities in how corporate brands are built, how employer brands are built, and how that can be applied to building the brand of the founder. Started also looking around, realized that other people wasn't using in the personal branding space, weren't using any methodologies or such structured approaches as we did in corporate branding or employer branding. And so as that business continued to grow, we expanded nationally. I started having a lot of problems with my co-founder, and I also started losing passion for the business. And it was a really difficult turning point because financially the business was doing great. We were extremely profitable. We had the stunning office, an amazing team, just everything on the surface looked really great and just continuing to grow. But I found myself, Lynn, at one point driving to the office and sitting in the parking lot and not feeling excited about going upstairs into my own office. And then how do you motivate other people to be excited when you're not excited? So that was quite a pivotal point. But I felt in many ways that I had those self imposed golden handcuffs because the business was going great. So, what am I going to do with it? Number one, problems with the co founder. Number two, and also huge degree of insecurity. Who says that if I walk away and start, whatever happens here, my co-founder was not interested in buying me out. So, and we had no shareholders agreement. So that's another story. The usual, the classic. But so who was to say that if I just walked away and start building this other business that would be successful? I didn't feel the confidence. I wasn't a serial entrepreneur yet. I didn't have the confidence that it would work. So that was quite an interesting beginning of 2020 that was, and that was, kind of that point of stuckness that I found myself in.
Mm. And then what happened? How did you then go unstuck and go, okay, this is the moment I really need to take charge and move forward with the next chapter?
COVID happened to all of us. COVID happened, and our business was really not prepared for COVID. And frankly, many businesses weren't. But I also learned many were. And so that's been a lot of lessons learned as a result, seeing other founders who were more emergency prepared. Our business wasn't. And so we went from hero to zero overnight. Literally overnight. All of our clients put all of their culture projects, their employer branding projects, they will all of the non-essential HR projects as they deemed it, because HR overnight got completely shifted in their priorities. They put everything on hold, and we only worked on contingency. We didn't have a recurring business model. Another lesson learned. And so all of a sudden, we quite literally went to zero. Well, as all of the expenses remained, weren't prepared for it, and our business partnership was struggling. So where do you go from there? And that was a big moment of panic and trying to at least keep things afloat for a few months and just surviving. And then I realized that this was the opportunity to prove to myself, am I an entrepreneur, or was that a one-time lucky situation? My passion wasn't there anymore. Do I rebuild a business that's now also not financially profitable and I'm not loving anymore? Or
Mm.
do I go to starting this new thing, which is not financially profitable because there's no business, but I'm so passionate about? And so I
Mm.
took this other route that felt extremely vulnerable and risky and very scary. The second time around was scarier. The stakes were higher. Like now I had a kid and I had more responsibility, and now all of this is happening. And so took that risk. And just over 4 years later, I am so, so grateful that I took the risk. The story has a happy ending.
Well, it's amazing because sometimes, challenges happen. It's kind of a blessing in disguise. You might not have taken action if it wasn't for COVID hitting the business and going from hero to zero. So, some lessons in around partnership that you could share, considering you've gone through it. How would you have done things differently if you're looking back, or even in the future if you ever got a partner again?
I did. I got a partner again, but we got a different structure. So I'm a majority shareholder. So that's one piece. A second piece is we did get a shareholders agreement before we even started the business. So learn from that. And number three, we have a contingency fund now, which I didn't have in the other organization as well. That's really important. Another huge lesson in partnership. So not for crisis situations, which is what I just shared, but for healthy growth of the business. With my co-founder right now, we are completely different in what we love doing. So we're completely aligned in our core values and passions and vision for the business, the important stuff. But everything that I love doing, he has zero interest in, and vice versa. So we stay in our lanes. Whereas often when we start a business, we go on the basis of similarities, and then we're both visionary, or we both like to, just execute on things, and that doesn't take you far. So that's another huge lesson for me, for anyone who's looking to have a partner. I love having partners because have someone to collaborate with and brainstorm with and confide in, and it's very helpful. We have a yo for that, but it's very helpful to have a partner as well. But having a partner who just matches on all of the blind spots is a gift from above.
Yeah, I totally get you. I've gone through so many partners and I've learned so much because sometimes I'm like, yay, great values, but then the skill set wasn't there. And then when the skill set's there, but yet the values align, so you kind of need a bit of everything. So were you able to find the partner from the beginning? You're like, hey, I'm starting a brand, a new business, I'm going to need a partner. Or was it kind of start at first and realize, hang on, I want to have a partner from here?
We started together. So from the beginning, and we knew that we wanted to be partners and we wanted to build a business together. And so that was from the get go. And I'm very grateful for this partnership. It's very rare because my role can be perceived by someone who is, in competition and not co-creation, as very glitz and glam. I am the visionary in the business. So I am the face of the business. I do a lot of public speaking. I travel a lot for the business. I am very involved with all of the EO stuff. And, if you look at it, it's just all, fun and amazing and incredible, which is something that can cause friction, right? We hear from a lot of people in EO when their partner's not in EO that, oh, how much more? And what are you doing? And why are you always traveling? And why are you doing all of those things? I don't have those issues with my business partner. On the other side, he's really he's a fantastic integrator, and he's a phenomenal people manager. And so all of the team, whenever they have something good to say about the business, all of the compliments and praise and appreciation and gratitude go to him. And I'm so happy because I'm not in competition on that. So I can also, applaud and support him and elevate him. So that is just priceless, and I'm something I'm very, very grateful for.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so did you know this individual prior, like, already? That's why when you got started with the business, you were ready to go? Or, was it quite new, but you just felt right?
I knew it would be right because he was one of my managers in my previous business. So we'd worked together for years, and he told me at one point that he really wanted to start some kind of a venture together. At some point, he said, I'm very entrepreneurial. And, I kept postponing and postponing, but I did see that there was that potential for again, that match. And he came from a different, so my background is more, visionary entrepreneurial marketing. His background is more creative writing. So again, even from the skill set point, because Lynn, when you start a business, it's just the two of you, right? So you need to be able to execute and deliver. Then fortunately, quickly we started bringing people on board. But at the beginning, who is going to do sales and marketing? That was me. Who is going to then deliver and execute on all of the branding work and content creation? That was him. So even from the skill set, from standpoint from those very early days, I knew that that would be very complementary too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so when you first started and you're building from scratch, what were some of the first few steps? Did you have to do it for free for some people to validate, or did you go straight into packaging? And yeah, love to hear a bit of your starting journey with a new business.
We went straight into packaging because also there was no other income stream, right? And that's the beauty of being uncomfortable. You hustle to right away have money, be profitable, and everything is accelerated. It's interesting. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, I'm getting comfortable in the business again. We need to create discomfort to accelerate growth. And so, no, right away we created packages. What's fascinating is that we've never done any kind of outbound sales in the business ever. And we've grown quite a bit. We've now worked with clients in 12 different countries across the globe, but we've never done outbound sales, including from the first day of the business. What's interesting, and this is some kind of universe stuff from above, I was doing a lot of manifesting at the time and visioning and was just doing everything I could. Um, had people who began to reach out to me asking for help if I could help them build their visibility as they're looking to put themselves out there. But this was before I even formally launched the business. So it really was some kind of universe stuff that these potential clients started coming to us saying, I don't even know why I'm talking to you about this because this is not what you do. But they said, I like what you've been doing for yourself because I have been building my visibility. Can you help me do the same? And so I said, of course, this is something that I'm working on right now. Let me get back to you and present you with a package. And then I went to my, now co-founder, we need a package. And then there was a package we started charging right away and then started adding services and growing. But those first 4 customers that all came to us within the first couple of months before we even incorporated the business, we didn't even have a website. We had nothing but reputation.
Yeah, and that's how you start a business because it's really about solving a problem. Sometimes we complicate things and start making logos and websites before we even sell. I think it's really about like just getting your hands dirty and fix things and help people, and then yeah, and the rest is history. Talking about traveling a lot, I know you're a mum. How old are your kids now, and how do you juggle the whole travel? And I bet you love traveling as well, and it's not something that you have to do for work. So how do you balance it all and making sure your family, your husband, and your kids are happy?
So my kids are 15. My daughter's 15 and my son is 9. And my daughter's here at the studio behind. And that it explains, that gives part of the answer to the question is I do a lot of what I call stacking. So I do a lot of, putting the pieces of the puzzle together so that I go here, pick up the kid, then I come to the studio and then we do this and we go here. So a lot of that, arrangement of pieces of puzzle, which works really great. My daughter is a competitive dancer. And so she has her practices several times a week. So I drop her off. That's when I go to the gym. And so I've worked out and I pick her up and off I go. So I do a lot of that. I'm sure you can relate to that. A lot of that puzzle making. I love travel. Travel to me is oxygen because I grew up behind the Iron Curtain. I grew up convinced that I would never travel. And the first time I sat on a flight, it was the flight bringing me to Canada as an immigrant. I was 16. And so since then, I've caught the travel bug. I just cannot get enough of travel. And so what I've been doing as a result and trying to do as my kids are growing up is bring them with me as much as I can. And so, for example, next month we have a big EO meeting. I'm in a global role this new year as well. And so we have a big meeting in Milan. I'm bringing the kids to Milan. I'm bringing my assistant from Poland to Milan. She has a whole itinerary. She's planned out. She's hanging out with them. They're not little babies, so that's it's going to be fun for all of them. And then when I finish the meeting, so they have a whole itinerary of everything they're doing. They're doing classes. They're going to be making pizza and making gelato and like the whole itinerary. And going to a cosmetic store and going to all of the landmarks and the whole thing. And then when I finish those meetings, she leaves. And then for 2 more weeks, I have one-on-one time or one-on-two time with my kids, and we get to visit and go to the beach, etc. So I do a lot of that planning. I was cool mom earlier in the year when we had a big meeting in Dubai, and I took my 15-year-old out of school and brought her with me, and she got to miss school and go to Dubai, and then again had a couple of days at meetings, and then we got to hang out. So I do a lot of that stacking. I felt very insecure as a young mom, that I was traveling and that I was always not always around. And a lot of people called me out on it and, asked questions and made comments. But today as it stands, I'm very close with my kids and I'm the cool mom. So it all worked
Yeah,
out.
I totally relate with you. It's really about being really resourceful with our time, integrated, stacking it. But also, when we're away, I just find that my kids become more independent. Because if I'm always there and doing everything for them, they kind of become really reliant on me. But when I'm not around, they're like just doing things for themselves. So there's always a positive to us being away, but I love that you're integrated, taking them on trips. But the other funny thing is my kids are actually telling me I don't want to get out of school. Like, don't make me miss out on school. As I love kids, like, take me out of school. So that's the battle there.
I love that. That's the balance. But I love that you talk about I think that the best mom is a busy mom because then
Mm.
you're not helicoptering, then you're not constantly in the business. Then they feel compelled to tell you stuff because you're not constantly in their business and constantly present and constantly checking everything. I think those things work. I decided from the time my daughter started school that I would never be involved in homework unless she asked me. I wanted that to be her zone of responsibility. My sister is a department chair at a university in the US, and she still has students that are struggling with all of a sudden they're independent. Up until university, mom and dad would check every single day and sit down with them, draw with them and correct and do essentially the homework for them. And what does that teach them? I'd rather, if my kid's going to fail in homework in grade two than, university. And she became extremely independent. People were telling me, oh, no, no, she's so independent because she's a girl. You have a boy, wait until he goes to school. Did the same thing, same success. He's independent, passed his homework, it worked out. So I agree with you. A busy mom is a bonus of the benefit to the children.
That makes a lot of sense because when I was growing up, my parents couldn't help me with homework because they didn't even know English. So I was very independent. I was resourceful, because it's up to me to make it work. And so because I'm busy, I thought, oh, hang on, maybe I should help my kids with homework, but just haven't had time and I don't love it. I just don't love academics. So definitely, I've been kind of like having that dilemma, but now I'm hearing you and I'm like, actually, I'm going to leave it because I do think that it shows that if you don't do it, you're going to be in trouble. It's not me, and if you need help, obviously I'm there. So thanks for
It
validating.
teaches them great lessons. I remember when my daughter was hitting grade 5, they sent the communication saying that now we're going to start teaching the kids to be more independent, and a lot of kids were struggling. And I'm like, oh, mine was already independent. And it's a balance of being very present because it's important to be present and build a very close and trusting relationship, but not overbearing where we're not teaching them important skills. So I'm giving you permission to not do the homework you don't like. And it's actually a benefit and bonus to the kids than a hindrance.
Thanks. So talking more about EO, tell me a little bit about your journey. You've been in it for about 11 years. So what made you join and what made you love it?
Oh my God, I fell in love from the first meeting. I joined the test drive because a client at the time invited me and my then co-founder. And really, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, but we hear it time and time again, I felt these are my people. I'm not the weirdest in the room. I am the squarest in the room. And I wanted to join, and I learned that to join EO, you have to have $1 million business, which I didn't have. And then this was 11 years ago. And then they said, well, we have an accelerator program. And they were just launching it in Montreal, where I live. And I said, well, I don't want to do an accelerator program. I want to be an EO. But I went to accelerator day one of EOA. I was blown away. The program was fantastic. In 1 year of accelerator, we doubled our revenue with zero increase in headcount, a lot of reshuffling of the headcount. And it was transformational. I joined EO, joined the path of leadership in year one, launched GSEA in Montreal, was running around 8 and a bit months pregnant on the day of the event, and thus commenced my leadership journey with EO. I've been in all kinds of leadership roles ever since.
Yeah. I mean, one of the objection people always have is like, I don't know if I have time for EO. And yet a busy mum like you and me, we just throw ourselves in it and we just love it. So what would you say to someone that goes, I'm not sure if I have time for EO?
Well, it accelerates everything else. Thanks to EO, I've been able to structure a business that has grown exponential in such a little time. I mean, we're one of the global leaders in personal branding for founders in 4 and a bit years.
Mhm.
And it's thanks to EO, all the best practices, all the learning, all the hard learning, how to structure the business, how to empower employees, how to build culture, virtual, because it's a fully remote team. All of those learnings that come from EO, number one. Number two, I've accelerated myself. I've improved myself as a parent tremendously through one-on-one conversations and also structured learnings. I've learned so much that I've been able to bring to my kids. Um, Being on the path of leadership in EO has been immensely helpful because, again, I've learned where do we learn otherwise how to conduct effective meetings, how to create certain things and projects and processes. I learned them in EL because in EL and leadership roles we get to play and do things and break things and make things and create things, and then we bring that into our businesses. So the learning is huge. So if someone is busy but they're not really focused on business growth and personal growth, then there is no point in joining EO. But if you're busy and you're a junkie of growth, your business and personal, EO just accelerates that. And so that time investment, it just 10x's the ROI. And there's also just so much you can do on a level of whatever inspires you, right? Whatever your mission. For me, for example, as of over a year now, I'm helping build a chapter in Ukraine. And so I'm part of, in addition to being part of EO Canada Bridge chapter, which is fantastic, I'm also part of a forum in Ukraine, and we're now launching a second forum in Ukraine. And that's just immense. So even those passion projects that warm the heart, even that we're able to do within the scope of the organization, which is rewarding. So that's my pitch.
So if you had to describe yourself as a leader back over 11 years ago, what were you like and what are you like now as a leader?
Oh, I didn't even know. It's so funny. I was reflecting the other day. So first of all, as a leader, I was a non-leader, 11 years ago. Then I joined EO, and a couple of years in, I remember being interviewed for a role within EO, and one of the questions is stuck with me because I didn't give a good answer, and I'm, like type A, so it stuck with me. The question was, how would you describe yourself as a leader? And I had no idea. I'm like, well, how do people describe themselves? I don't know. I lead, I don't know. What do you say? I have no idea. And then now I know that I'm the type of leader that leads with a lot of energy and passion, and I see greatness in others. I put them in the right seats and I elevate them as a result. And that's what
Mhm.
people appreciate the most when they get to work with me in my business or in EO roles is that I get to know someone even a little bit and I say, this is the role you would love and you would thrive in. And then I really elevate people and I'm a big cheerleader.
Mm.
Huge, huge change and not even knowing, well, what is a leader? What does that mean? What are you talking about? To being really clear on where I bring value. And I was just reflecting on that last night. So
Uh, Great answer. So looking back, what was your reason for starting a business and have that reason for running a business and continue being in the business changed?
very much so. So originally, I did not have entrepreneurship on my radar. A former coworker came to see me and convinced me that we should start a business. And when she came to see me, I had just found out that I was pregnant. And I was very excited about the pregnancy, but it was a surprise. It was a surprise that I was pregnant. And so I was very, kind of all over the place and what's going on. I wasn't even telling anyone yet. And it was just what's going on. And so I was very, very vulnerable. And so when she said, we're going to start a business, I said, what business? What are we going to do? She said, what do you want to do? And I'm like, daycare. Because now all I could think about was that I was going to have a baby. And so then we decided to do something else. And so I didn't have a specific goal. I just felt, I did have motivation of doing something different within an industry that I knew, but it wasn't as much of a, passion-driven business as it is now. Now my reasons are very different. So one is it's mission driven. I cannot even tell you the satisfaction that I get when I see a client on stage and it's a client who had said who wants to listen to me, what I have to say that's of value, and all of a sudden owns the stage and wants to become a global speaker. What happened? That is just immensely, immensely satisfying. We have people who come to us, and a lot of people think branding, especially personal branding, it's rooted in vanity, but it's not. It's an exercise in identity. And we have so many people that come to us and say, working with you guys has been transformational to me. It's been a pivotal part of my journey and self-understanding and feel comfortable owning who I really am and showing it to others. That's, mind blowing.
Oh, that's mind blowing. Yes.
Mind blowing. It gives me chills when I hear that time and time and time again. We have people often coming to us, Lynn, saying, people all often call me out on ABC. And let's build the brand away from that. And we say, hold on a second. People really zone in on that. Let's go all in on that. And then we do that. And then we have people say, I all of a sudden feel like I'm authentically myself. And now instead of being called out on it, people expect it from me because I own that part of me so much. So being able to really impact people's lives and transformation, when people come to us and say, I don't know, today, I want to build my personal brand to have another lead gen source for my business. And I said, no, that's not what we do. When someone comes to us and say, I don't know if I really want to put myself out there, but have a message and I want to, speak to the next generation and I want to inspire others. Yes, we'll help you. So where I used to be very, financially motivated and driven and still had desire to impact the industry, now that passion and pride for what we do is very deep. And to add to that too, the team impact aspect is really significant and substantial to me now. I have a couple of employees now in Ukraine, and then several Ukrainian employees that are now out of Ukraine because of the war. And it's just also really impactful and meaningful. So a lot more meaning behind the work that I have.
That's so beautiful. I can definitely hear the passion and energy through your voice. And I totally get you because I used to be a shy girl. And it wasn't until I decided that I want to make an impact. And in order to make an impact, I got to get out of my shell. And it's not about me, it's about others. And so I just stuck at it and continue making videos, being out there because most of the, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're new, no one's looking at you and you're like, hey, even though you're posting it, you don't want anyone to see it, but you also want people to see. And then when there's no likes and followers, you kind of get a little bit demotivated. But when my why was more about making an impact, it made it easy. So talk about impact. Ultimately, I guess, what's the impact you want to make to the world and what do you want to be remembered for, Marina?
I really want to inspire people to find their voice and to stand in their realness and authenticity, to not feel that they have to wear a mask. I always talk about standing out, speaking up, and being radically authentic. And if, legacy is all about what do people say about us when we're gone. If people say, she impacted me in a way where I believed in myself more and I felt more comfortable for my voice to be heard, I don't even care. Of course, my dream is for it to be a million people. But listen, if it's one person that we get to inspire and impact on a deep level, that is already a privilege. So that's my hope and dream.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I can so relate with you and I can't wait to meet you. I think I could potentially be cross pathing in Milan next year. So we'll chat after this. But
Please.
yeah, thank you so much, Marina, for being on the show. Yeah, I'm sure you're all across social media so people can connect with you because you are, at the end of the day, the branding expert. So thank you again for making time for us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Lynn. You have such a compelling and exciting presence that I'm just so, so happy that you found the courage to find your voice because it's very compelling and you're doing a lot for the world. And I'm just so happy that you took that plunge. It's paying off.
Thank you.